Hi, I'm Shay Boloor, and today we're going to talk about a headline that one of my favorite speculative AI names made in IREN when the company announced $2.8 billion of new multi-year AI cloud contract. And it also raised its year-end 2026 analyzed revenue run rate target from 3.7 billion to more than 4 billion. So let's get into what this means. So obviously those are very big numbers, especially for a company that's around a $10 billion market size. But I actually think the most important detail to me wasn't actually the contract value or even the increase of the revenue target. It was the fact that customers are prepaying roughly 45% of the related GPU capital spending now. So that is a huge hidden gem to me because it fundamentally improves the way IREN is funding its growth. Since one of the biggest bear cases against not just IREN, but all neocloud companies is that they must continually borrow money or issue stock to purchase rapidly depreciating GPUs before those systems can generate any revenue. So essentially what that means is they spend billions up front and then hope to have demand remain strong enough and pricing remain attractive enough to earn a good return on that hardware. So that's obviously there's an elevated amount of risk with that kind of business strategy. But if you're part of the camp where you believe we're going to be compute constrained, not just this year, not just next year, but for the rest of the decade, this is a really polarizing thematic to be a part of, but if it works out that way, there's going to be a very high ceiling on a lot of these neocloud companies. And I do think that IREN is beginning to change how the market views them because by getting the customers to nearly fund half the GPU cost before the systems are even deployed, the customer now helps pay for the hardware while IREN provides the power, the data centers, the networking, deployment, operations, and the cloud platform. So both sides now are more economically aligned around getting that capacity online as quickly as possible. So that's our first hidden gem from this headline today. The second one was I do think that the quality of IREN's revenue target now is improving alongside the size of the targets. So what I mean by that is IREN didn't simply just bump up its revenue guidance to above $4 billion. It also added that approximately 85% of that amount is now under contract. That's a huge distinction because now the target becomes a lot more credible when customers can sign multi-year agreements, commit billions of dollars, and also prepay part of the equipment costs required to serve them. That opportunity became a lot larger today, but also the visibility behind that opportunity improved at the same time. So that's why the customer is telling everyone that we believe in what IREN's offering and we're willing to commit this much in order to get our needs as well. The next gem from this headline as well was the customer base appears to be broadening out as well. I mean, IREN's AI story was obviously previously largely two customers, Microsoft and NVIDIA. So those relationships are huge. I'm not trying to diminish them because those are major validation points in the IREN story, but they also created somewhat of a concern that too much of the company's future revenue could depend on a small number of customers. The new contracts now, after today's announcement, include multiple leading AI developers across physical AI, robotics, generative media, research, design, model development. Like that diversification is now strategically important for IREN's story because it reduces the risk that, I don't know, one customer design or one contract renewal or some kind of pricing negotiation determines the direction of the entire business. So that concentration risk is getting diminished after this deal. It's not fully gone away, but it's gotten less, which is great to see. It also supports the idea that cheaper and more capable models do not necessarily reduce the total compute demand. I know that's been the FUD the past couple of weeks. It's absurd. It really is a DeepSeek 2.0 type of moment because if you make intelligence more accessible, increase the number of applications that are being built, and drive total AI usage much faster than the cost of each individual workload is declining, that's going to be a huge tailwind for this whole neocloud space. And that's also one of the reasons I remain so interested in IREN is because the company owns so much of the physical infrastructure beneath the GPU fleet. Since GPUs are still expensive, they will probably go down as the years go on, but they're still really expensive because the supply and demand is very imbalanced right now. But a well-funded competitor in theory, can also generally purchase that same hardware. The harder asset to replicate really is the access to large amounts of grid connected power. New data centers can project spending years waiting for grid interconnections, transmission upgrades, substations, transformers, permits, and construction, but a company may have a customer ready to consume the compute, but they aren't able to deliver it because just the underlying power infrastructure isn't there yet. That's why IREN was one of my go-to positions in my growth portfolio to capture this compute constraint thematic because it controls a growing portfolio of energized and developed sites already, which means the company can monetize power, land, grid connections that own data centers, hardware, operations, networking, cloud infrastructure, all through one vertically integrated platform. those are a huge opportunity, but there is always going to be an execution risk because, again, just a couple of years ago, this was a Bitcoin mining company. So this is a huge transition it's making, but it has all the tools in its shed in order to make that transition. So now, after this headline, what am I looking forward to next? What's my next question I'm looking to get answered by the company? Can IREN actually physically deliver the capacity required to convert those contracts into real revenue? I mean, I know the CEO, part of the headline today, Dan Roberts, he mentioned that the company now has expanded from roughly 3 megawatts of self-built AI cloud capacity just a year ago. Now it's going to be like around 480 megawatts being delivered this year, which will then target 1.2 gigawatts during 2027. That is a huge ramp up. It's pretty extraordinary, actually, this kind of ramp up, going from 3 megawatts to 480 megawatts in 1 year. That's a 160-fold expansion in self-built AI cloud capacity. That's very difficult, but it also explains both the size of the opportunity and the scale of the execution risk if you own IREN, because this is a $4 billion analyzed revenue target, but it's not recognized revenue because the contracts have been signed, but they still need to deliver the GPUs, finish the buildings, energize the capacity, install the systems, connect the networking infrastructure, and also make all these clusters available to customers on schedule. It's still a tall task. It's still got a lot of execution that needs to do after landing these deals. But if the company reaches 480 megawatt target this year and then progresses towards 1.2 gigawatts next year, the current contract should begin converting from backlog into recognized revenue. And then finally, IREN has that cash flow to defend the bearish arguments that's kind of been attacking the stock all year. That's why the next proof point is really just delivering the 480 megawatts on schedule. But today's update did help address the two biggest risks surrounding IREN's transformation from that Bitcoin miner a couple years ago to becoming this AI cloud platform. I mean, the first was expanding the GPU fleet requires billions of dollars before revenue arrives. So customers prepaying around 45% of the related GPU capital spending reduces that burden and also shows customers are willing to put meaningful capital behind their commitments. Also, IREN now has $7 billion of cash available. I know that they're in the heavy cash burning phase, but combine that liquidity with customer prepayments and asset-backed GPU financing, they're in a great position right now for this compute-constrained environment. The funding treadmill does not disappear. I do think that the company's still pursuing a massive build-out. It's not going to be profitable anytime soon, but the model does become much more shareholder-friendly when customers just can fund part of the equipment and secured financing covers another portion. The second big risk that was diminished a bit today, like I mentioned earlier, was the customer concentration risk. Microsoft and NVIDIA provided strong validation, but the business really does need to prove that it can attract a wider range of customers and workloads. These new contracts suggest that process is underway. Again, neither of these risks has disappeared. The direction is just improving because now IREN is becoming less dependent on a single customer and less dependent on funding the entire expansion through its own balance sheet. And that, at the end of the day, is a net positive for IREN shareholders.